brown cow.
Welcome everybody to episode 24 of PT Shop Talk. On today's episode, we talk about taking on interns and PT students and the struggles and rewards with that. And then we finish up with our top 5 television series of the 21st century. I'm Casey Hansen. With me today is Nick Demogorgon Doling and Jeremy King of Dragons Van Klompenberg. Welcome, gentlemen.
Each and every week, I'm just almost at a loss. Like, how do I respond to that?
How much time does that take? You were just spot on every week.
Too much.
Yeah, Larry the Cable Guy last week. He had you, or 2 weeks ago, right?
That's why I take so many PT students. I have other things I need to get done instead of see my patients. I said, hey, you got to give me about two hours. I got to go make nicknames up.
I got to go research some stuff.
Yeah, my students are like, well, makes sense. That must be what all PTs do. So
more or less.
Seems like a good career.
yeah. Then they actually get into the real world and they're super angry at me.
Yeah,
like I haven't made a single nickname since I've started the job. You're doing it wrong.
Just wait, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
You got to build up a little equity. So
yeah,
you do.
It's true.
Yeah.
Nick, I feel like I just saw you recently in person.
Because you did.
Oh,
in people,
Jeremy.
Good to touch you. Yeah, in
person. Yeah,
in person.
Was that today? Was that today?
No.
We were
This weekend. We were together this weekend, Nick and I.
At the Mighty Big Stone 32nd anniversary celebration.
And rolling at the Twins game. Super fun. Nick almost got to live a boyhood dream out, and he didn't.
Throw the first pitch?
No.
I don't want to steal your thunder, Nick, but Nick has always wanted to see a Grand Slam in person. And there was a Grand Slam at the game, and
we got
Nick's
to watch
dumb body was in line getting a drink while it happened. So,
well, I wasn't the only one in my defense.
Well, I mean, I was in line with you. No, I wasn't. I'll talk to you later. I was.
Didn't we talk? I was talking to somebody in line.
I don't think it was me.
We were talking about that, and I gave the old proverbial, bases are juiced. We have nobody out, so go figure. We're gonna hit a Grand Slam here, or we're gonna hit into a double play.
Usually the
turned
latter.
out to be a Grand Slam. Yeah.
Did we win? Did we win? I didn't even check.
Yes. We held on, won 5-4.
Yeah, that Grand Slam was huge. They were down 3-0 when that happened.
3-0, yeah. Took the lead just like that, as they say.
That's why that game's so exciting.
Yeah, good time, great time. We got photographic evidence that Casey and I were there in person together, so that's pretty cool.
What?
We'll have
we
to
put
post
that up on our
something.
social. Yeah.
We can Photoshop you in, Jeremy. My skills aren't good, but I can make something work.
Do it. Do it.
Yep. I got some ideas.
Yeah.
We're Facebook friends. I'll pull some pics off the 5 you have online.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
So
hey man, I'm with you. I'm not a big online being, I'm just
you established that a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Keep it close to the chest. So
yeah.
Just what it is.
Good game, good little dueling pianos festivity at night. Stayed out way too late.
Whoa.
Should have called it.
Should have called it.
How long did you end up? I went to bed about 11 and Nick wanted to keep going at that point.
2 a.m.
We swung by the lobby bar and too many familiar faces. It was like Cheers. Not a segue.
Not a segue. That is not in the 21st century.
Yeah.
Yeah, way too late.
Yeah.
That's just my answer.
Oh, that's fair.
you only celebrated 32nd anniversary one time.
Company only turns 32 once.
That's true.
Enjoy it.
So true.
Yeah, it was fun though. It was a cool event, and I would say I had a blast. Just to get to see everybody in person. It's the first time in a long time do stuff like that. But
yeah,
you know, it was like a cool moment for me, and especially just kind of very motivating, I would say.
Go.
Yeah, at one point, they had the 2 founders of our company come up on stage, and people just filled out questions and asked questions, and they just fired off questions to these 2 guys that really created this thing from nothing 32 years ago. I mean, obviously we all know the story, but the listeners don't. To just start out for 2 young punks out of school and start a company, and then to grow it, you could just see, like, I don't know, it's like parents watching their kids grow up. Like these guys are just on stage, and have people just be a part of it, be a part of a family. Like that was such a cool
Yeah.
moment. I was like, that
Yeah.
has to be just an awesome feeling to just stare out at. I think there was about 390 folks there, maybe a little
Yep.
more.
That was a number. Yeah.
What was the Doling was the 25th, the Steamboat?
Yes. That was a steamboat.
And you bring this up, where I'm going with this, Casey, is like
Go ahead.
very, very similar. We got up on these like 3 or 4 big coach buses, and we're going to this, this steam powered boat on the river. And I sat across from Wade and Cindy, and I looked at Wade and I said, like, I don't even think he knew who I was. And I go, do you ever think 25 years ago, like, you'd be loading 3 coach buses full of people? He's like, no freaking way. That's not a direct quote, but he's like,
seems like it
no
is.
way, no way. he's just like, no way, not ever in my wildest dreams. And like you talk about like motivating. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
We're just like, yeah, me and my buddy, we walked in and we thought we could do better, and we told them we could, and now we're here. Holy cow.
Yeah. I mean, it's like so many other stories you hear in like leadership and entrepreneurship where people were asked that question, like it's usually 2 questions. Did you ever envision it was going to be this big? And they're like, no, never.
No.
Never started out that way.
No.
And then the second one, like, did you have any clue how much work it was going to be to get there? They're like,
Nope.
no, because if you'd have told me that up front, I would have quit, right? I would have never chased it.
Yeah.
But it all happens so gradually and organically.
I said that after PT school.
Yeah.
If I had only known.
If I knew it was this much work, dang.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
But yeah, to sit up there and I don't know, soak it all in and to think of all that stuff, because I'm sure there was lean times. I'm sure there was times it sucked. I mean, they had mentioned, letting partners go when things just weren't working out. Like some major decisions that were probably pretty hard to deal with. Heartache. They told some cool stories about therapists in the company that had hard times and being part of that family and how powerful that was. Like, it was just cool. And then for me to sit at my table and look at all my staff, later when we're drinking and dueling pianos, and like, I don't know, just to see that little small group of people like having a blast and being a part of something that, I've been a part of and helped grow and given them that opportunity even, that was cool.
That's cool.
Because sometimes you sit there and you think about, like, hate to say this, this is expensive and, this is a lot of money, but then you sit and look and I don't know, it's all worth it. Like, probably wouldn't want to do that every year, but
no.
but it is cool. Like that's a moment you don't get unless you sit and do something like that and really plan it out. And I don't know, that was worth whatever it cost me. We'll see, I guess.
Play the long game, right, Doling? Long game.
Play the long game.
Play the long game.
So yeah,
so cool.
That was very fun.
Cool.
So yeah, for any young therapists listening, that was a cool moment.
How many people do you have come up, Case?
Let's see, we had half the clinic, so we probably
awesome.
had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of us. 7 of us
just
plus
about everybody, didn't you?
Dude, that's
I didn't see
awesome.
Mike.
Yeah, Mike and
see
Jody weren't there, and
Mike and
then
Jody.
Connie, our new therapist, and
okay.
Bailey, our OT. So yeah,
Oh, I suppose when you have that. Yeah.
but all our
But
TSRs were there, and
Matt was there.
yep.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was.
That's really
cool. Like, and especially because I would say when I hopped on board, there was, I believe there was a time where our clinic would have had 0 people attend that. Just there was a little bit of a culture battle when we first joined on, and I feel like it swung, and that's a good feeling too. Like just being part of the team, and I think
people know they'll have to answer to the quarter zip if they didn't.
Yeah, right.
They'll have to answer to that quarter zip.
Well, and I think just people buying in and being part of the deal and realizing, like, our company, we care the most, but our company sure cares too. Like, our company is not just there to, see us fail. They really want us to succeed too. And I think that buy-in has been huge. At least I would feel like for the last year, 2 years,
Yeah.
at our clinic, and this was just one of those culminations of the event, combined with some of the numbers and stats that we've seen grow lately too, has been, just cool altogether combination of everything. So
I was gonna say too, I mean, like, you guys are like, you know, you guys are a little bit more on the periphery of like our region too. And
not quite as
I'm
far
like,
away as you are, but
not as far as we are, but like, same thing though. That's a little bit of a haul, and like I gotta imagine like that's a cool thing too, because like we talk about all the time how you can kind of bang the drum on different issues, and it's like good to hear those things from a different voice, right? And especially hear that from the founders of our company, and like, hey, this is what we went through, this is what we've been through, this is where we're at, this is where we're trying to go. Like, I don't know, I'm with you. No matter what the out of pocket cost is, like, I don't know, sounds pretty dang valuable,
yeah.
So,
Plus they had a
pretty cool.
mac and cheese bar, which is sweet. I've never partaken in one of those.
So
It was
fries
solid.
were
if
good.
I could turn back time.
I did not see. I got a slight. We were going on this one for a little bit, but I'd love to say I could echo everything you're saying, Case. But one of the issues we had in our group was the acoustics in that room were not really strong. So where we were sitting,
No one even knows that word but you.
We were sitting there and just kept looking at each other like, did you catch what they said? Did you catch what they said? And it was very hard to understand in the Q&A thing. So that was
we were the nerds
we were
in
the
the
last
room.
We were the last ones to eat, so we had no cheeseburgers left either.
Oh
Man, a little sour. Yeah, it wasn't worth the money you spend. I get it.
Was it the acoustics or the Terramana?
I did not have Terramana that night.
You didn't?
A lot of Captain.
Okay. But it was the acoustics.
A lot of rum.
Yeah.
No, it
Blame
was
the acoustics.
the acoustics were. We were trying. Wayne, I was sitting there with Wayne and Lisa Head, and we were trying to catch what they were saying, and they were like, I don't know.
Do they like
every now and again?
That's a good name drop. Do they like
Yeah,
Apollo?
probably not. Probably not.
Oh,
No, I
man.
blatantly asked Wayne, and he said
We're gonna
no,
have
so
to push him. We're gonna have to push him.
take it back.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get a couple of his kids to listen.
Keep
Get 'em
growing.
back, get
Keep
'em
growing.
into therapy.
Speaking of shout outs, we did have a request for this episode that we got to spend a little bit of time.
What?
Somebody wants to know, Ashley Holmes wants to know about Stranger Things. Like, she wants our take. We're halfway through the season. I think we've all
watched it.
You got volume 1 done, right?
Correct. All the way through.
So
It took me less
you
than
don't have to
3
worry about.
days. I was done in like before the week was done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Just
took a little
fired
bit of
through it.
time. I took a little bit of time. I
Okay,
watched
we'll have
some
to
episodes again.
I probably
Fine.
should rewatch it.
Deep. Where should we start? So
I'll let you take it away, Nick. I'm not like I feel like you're much more in depth when you watch stuff, and you're like, "Ooh,
This is
these
episode
things,"
6. This
and you're like
happened.
putting it together. I feel like you're always trying to figure out the end. Where
You're
I'm
next
just
a little
level,
bit,
man.
yeah.
I'm just a
You're
little
next
for the
level.
ride.
I don't know if I've ever been as like drawn into maybe the story and the mythos of a show.
Ooh.
I mean, maybe
Continue.
maybe another example, but where I am really, I'm not that guy throughout the whole show, like tapping Michelle and being like, "Oh, this is what happened." But it does keep your mind working all the time. There's a lot
Agreed.
of mysteries there. And
Now, are you the kind of
just
guy that
mental.
like has to go on blogs after the episodes and be like, "Oh, what do you guys think?" And you're
Nah.
looking and you're like trying to read online.
Every now and again I'll go on. The furthest I go on that will be like an IMDb review. And
Okay.
just see, and I sometimes just looking at the average score on those episodes, like I knew I was getting something sweet with episodes 4 and 7, like even before that. So
Couldn't even tell you which ones they were. That was a great, like the whole half of the season is so good.
Yeah, but there are some episodes that are stronger than others, and you're kind of like, yeah, I don't know. Like the first ones now, they've established this kind of trend in the last couple of seasons where I think episodes 1 and 2, they really want to. This is what one of the people call this a negative. I barely, diss them for this, but they really mind nostalgia.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think they go heavy.
I think
in the
it's
first
awesome.
episode. It's like the first episode or two, but then after that, they don't lay it on so thick, right? It's not constantly using like you go back to episode 1 season one, and then same thing here. Like there's just this quick montage and cutaways to like what everybody's up to, right? You're kind of getting caught up on what everybody's doing. And there's always like a different
Skating.
song. And there's like, yeah, and they're like,
Walkman.
it's just blasting in your head. Like this is 1986, right? And but beyond that, the rest of the show, the story so ain't good. It draws you right in. And probably the best villain they've had, obviously. I think much has been made about Vecna being sentient, right? Like he can have dialogue, right? And that made him, you know, an extra wrinkle of scary. So huge fan. I think very few criticisms, and even the ones I have are like really weak. You know, they're like little nitpicky things. So
Yeah, I can't say I had a whole lot of negative. I thought it was all solid. And I'm kind of like you. I like the beginning. I like the nostalgia, and that's like the Spielberg thing, right? Like you gotta set up the scene, even though it's like, yeah, I know these people, I know where they are, I know what they like. You don't have to set the scene every season. I don't know. I think it's kind of cool. It's like giant movies, right? It's like 4 giant movies that are all related. So I'm okay with it too. And I always forget it's been 2 years. Like I need to
all those
I need a
episodes.
refresher.
All those episodes are like what 45, 47 minutes long, and there's some that are longer.
Every one of them's over 60.
Is it really? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That makes me more disappointed in myself that I watched them all so fast.
That 7th one was like an hour and 40 minutes.
That's wild.
Every episode took me at least 2 nights to watch.
Like, it didn't feel like it at all.
No,
it didn't feel. I kept maybe waiting for it to be a little draggy, a little bloated. Like one of my criticisms for the Netflix-based Marvel shows was that 13 episodes for that at an hour piece was very long. I felt like they're kind of dragging it on. But with this, there's so much going on. I never had that feeling.
Yeah. In some ways, I kind of wish there was more. Like, because there is some criticism that a lot of the main characters didn't get really much time at all, right? In the first 7 episodes. I mean, you had some major characters that you really don't even hear much from. Real big pieces.
How long did it take you guys to put it together? Like the kind of like the circle.
Well, like I said, the moment that the orderly shows up, and some people like these credited as like Peter Ballard,
Yeah, you're like he's big. He's a big piece of it.
I'm like, as soon as he shows up, he's like, sometimes the sleepyhead. I'm like, this dude is a bad guy. Like we've never seen him before. They're making a point to like show you this guy. He's connecting with 11, and I'm like, there's just something about him. And then by like whatever episode, but within like an episode or 2, I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's number 1.
Spoilers, everybody. There are going to be spoilers abound, I'm guessing, on this talk.
If you haven't jumped all over it by now, sorry, losers.
One. Hey, 2 weeks and
then I guess I kind of figured he was Vecna too. I don't know why. I don't know why.
I didn't put that together. I thought he was one, but I did not put together that he was the kid.
But it's
good.
I kept trying to figure it in my head though. I'm like, what mechanism are they going to use to have him play a role in those deaths in the 50s? And that was that was the mystery to me. And I'm like, how are they going to do that? Are they going to say like, because interdimensional travel creates like time-space continuum shifts and stuff like that? Are they able to jump back? And I'm like, there's a clock. I mean, maybe that has to do with time travel, right? Whatever. But then when they showed he was the kid, he was Henry Creel. I'm like, dang, I'm like, that's awesome. That's brilliant and really well written.
Yeah, it was good.
Good. I love the atmosphere. I thought, every part was cool. The going into the Upside Down, that storyline was kind of fun to see them there running around and like actually being active in that world and interacting with it was kind of cool.
Escaping.
Yeah.
Escaping.
Mostly.
I love that. Well, I love that music was part of it too. Like that was cool. That was a cool part of it.
Isn't that insane that like that Kate Bush song cranked up to number 1 on like iTunes? I think it was there for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean
it sucks.
You don't like it?
No.
I'm okay with it, but
I'm not paying for it.
Definitely not worth the investment.
Not paying for it.
But the way they used it in that scene to like save Max, I mean, that you talk about, I dropped this a couple weeks ago. That scene was like a climax to a movie. That's a moment in theater that you
super
you see the
long
MCU
movie.
and people are gonna like clap their hands, and they're gonna like cheer. That
If it was
nerd out
MCU
too.
though, they'd probably be crying. Like they're that.
Maybe,
they'd
yeah.
When people clap in a movie, I want to get up and leave. That's one of
Me-
my
Oh,
least favorite
Oh,
moments
come
of all
on,
time.
you fuddy duddy.
That's why I
Nobody
don't
that
go in
made that
person.
movie
Now,
is in that theater.
I'll be honest, I've never done that, but there was some point in like, now I know we're getting off topic a little bit, but like an Endgame and a couple of those moments in Avengers Endgame where like Cap finally like holds Mjolnir and people clap, you're like, okay, that's pretty cool. Like it's part of that shared, I guess, shared response, shared interaction. I'm not totally a hater on it.
Can't
I
stand
Now,
don't
if you
like
show
that at
up-
all. I don't
if you
like that at
show
all.
up to a Star Wars movie dressed like a stormtrooper, that might be something else too.
I will allow that based on theatrics alone. I wouldn't
But
do
you
it,
won't
but
allow somebody to clap.
ridiculous. This is not live.
Go home.
This is not Broadway. Yeah.
But they're also not acting in the damn movie. I mean,
I
you
don't
can't
know.
defend that. You can't. I mean, you can't defend somebody showing up in
Potato,
costume.
potato.
Now, if you show up at like the 2:00 matinee dressed as a stormtrooper by yourself, yeah, I would judge that a little bit. But if you show up to a midnight showing or a opening day showing dressed up, I'm okay with that.
Oh,
See,
come on.
I'd almost respect the by yourself at a 2:00 matinee more than midnight showing.
I
It makes more
respect it, but
sense.
I'm also gonna judge it.
Yeah,
It's
I don't know.
Now-
I don't blame anybody for a visceral reaction.
I was gonna
You
say,
guys-
I
and the,
assume
the
you
costume's really well thought out.
you fist pumped many times in a movie, Nick.
No, like I said, I've never really been one to clap or cheer, do anything like that with a film because it's
Because you're a
all.
normal human being.
It would be like the same. It'd be, I don't know how it's strange, but it's all like it's a screenplay. It's fiction. It's all played out, right? Not like a
It's
sport.
fake. Why would you clap?
Yeah. But why? So why would you dress up? I mean,
Because it's
Good point.
fake. It's fiction.
So
Theater
I
of the
gotta
mind.
go. I gotta go here though. You guys like kind of painted Stranger Things into a like scary movie,
mhm,
right?
Yeah.
that's what they said. They
Was there a
said
scary?
died, just-
Was there a like? What was the scariest point for you in that? Because me as a self-proclaimed
Yeah,
not
cat.
scary, like not scary movie person is how I would frame it.
So
but
I was reading, like, I know how they said it was going to be, there was going to be horror elements to it this season.
I didn't think
and
there was.
Drawing from, well, you could see a ton of where they mine, especially Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah,
I mean,
I was gonna
there's a
say
lot.
like the Vecna dream sequences,
Yeah,
you know, are
that's
very
like ripped.
Freddy,
yeah.
right?
So a little less
those have-
kooky, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
definitely
maybe I
less
gotta-
kooky. He didn't
And I
turn
like that
anybody
he
into a
didn't, but
living
he didn't,
video game.
but like Vecna wasn't a goofball either. He's not
Mm.
like throwing a little one-liner in before he kills the kid.
Mhm.
He's just like spooky.
Yeah.
So I think, okay, I'll see the end of the first two episodes when he when he gets Chrissy and then when he gets Fred. Both those scenes I thought were really well done.
Yeah.
And they
I just didn't think they were scary.
well, I mean, and I don't, not to like where you're closing your eyes or looking away, but like,
Yeah.
like for the minutes leading up to it, I had like just goosebumps going on.
Okay.
And especially even more the second time around because they've established. I mean, by the end of the second episode, you're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Fred, you're dead." Like Chrissy didn't make it, you're not making it.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
they
Not that
all
likable.
Yeah.
all died. They all die the same way. It's the same sequence for everybody.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's like.
You know,
not-
it was less.
I don't know.
Nailed
I
it.
don't know.
Like,
It was
I'm
less
I wouldn't want to
scary.
die that way.
Yeah,
Good point.
it's a bad way to go, dude.
But okay, now we'll say this by the.
But I don't want to
after the
do
sec-
that.
I think it got diminishing returns by the time Patrick got it in like episode 5.
Which one was
and that-
Fred? Was
Fred was
is
the
Pat
kid with the glasses.
the
and the nerdy
other
kid.
newspaper kid?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But
But
I
by the
will.
time,
say-
I think Patrick's had too much CGI too, because he's lifted out of the water.
Yeah.
And that, I remember watching that and it kind of took me out of it. And you by that point too, you're like, he's dead. I mean, but now if
But some of
if they
that,
were to kill off a major character, that could be a different story.
yeah, and I would say some of that like diminishing return kind of built up when Max was getting,
Correct.
you're like, oh god, she's dead. Like how there's no way she's gonna get out of this. Like it seemed pretty
Got it.
hopeless. So
She had
I think
plot armor.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what they
Like
say.
it-
Yeah.
Touche.
So it did create this moment where you're like, wow, are they actually going to kill her? Because I feel like she's so far the best actor in the season. Like,
She's
uh,
pretty
Yeah.
good.
she's
solid.
killing it.
Yeah.
It's
And I don't know.
unbelievable.
I had that's what made that one to me. I respected it even more because I guess I had zero doubt that she was going to live, but they made
Really?
me care. Yeah, they made me care. And by the
Yeah.
time she got, but I was so interested in like how they're going to do it. How they finally going to break the spell. And I thought that was great.
Yeah, they did go back and forth for a while where they're like from the psych hospital to them and on the high powered freaking walkie-talkie
yeah.
where there's like, come in.
Can I say my
it's
one?
music.
Can I say my one criticism
Yeah.
on this? So my only one is the massive tone shift. And I think it's like episode 6 where they cut away to Susie's house in Utah.
Yeah.
And it's totally played. It's a let me up moment. I get it. You know, they kind of did the same thing at the end of season 3, but it just they were hitting on every cylinder and they didn't need it.
Yeah.
You know, I think they could have kept it a little bit more straightforward, but they brought in this funky, kooky Mormon family with all these kids, and they're just wild, rambunctious, and this really stern dad. You know, yeah, you know, it was a let me up.
How do you know
moment,
they were Mormon?
but they kind of established that, right?
Did they?
Yeah,
They just said they were religious.
religious, but they got all those kids, right? I'm figured it's
And it's Utah.
And it's Utah.
Yeah.
I
Maybe that's
told
my
you, Nick's
assumption.
always putting the pieces together, man.
Yeah, but I think they
They
had
had to
so
be
much,
Mormon.
and they have so much going on. As I said, like
Sticky
They're
notes in his
building-
room with the art.
at that point, I think they're heavily cutting into. They were heavily cutting into obviously Eleven's backstory, which had awesome momentum, right? And you're
Yeah.
just unraveling that. And they had, Hopper in Russia, and you're finally like moving towards that Demogorgon battle. And
Which was balling too. That was a good scene
yeah,
too.
and all these things are great, right? And then this awesome showdown in Hawkins, they're unraveling that mystery a little bit more and a little bit more. And then it's like, I almost feel bad for that group of actors. I'm sure they're going to have really good stuff to work with in volume 2, but really, like, Jonathan, Will, Mike, and now Argyle. It's just like they're like the slapstick kind of piece of it after getting away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
comedy
Will's always kind of gotten the short end of the stick on this show, right?
Yeah, I really hope they give him some meaty stuff in this volume too, because I still think he has some weird connection to the Upside Down after being in there. They've kind of established that in his goosebumps whenever, the Mind Flayer was around and stuff. So,
Yeah.
and I could nerd out for like 3 hours on this.
They have
stuff,
to
but-
do
That was
something.
good, man.
Do something with his hair though. That drives me
Yeah.
insane.
Poor guy. Okay.
Like,
Every
I don't
season.
remember anybody having quite that ridiculous of looking hair growing up.
Just bowl cut year after year.
Yeah. Especially because he seems like he's like the oldest looking one now too, and he's got the most ridiculous youngest looking haircut.
They got to wrap this thing up though soon because, or time jump. Maybe that's the wise thing to do by season 5. I don't know.
They're not
Yeah.
kids anymore.
Yeah, throw him in the
They're
90s.
not. And this is like 90210 all over again. I mean,
Yeah.
I think Joe Keery, who plays Steve, he's 30 or 31.
30 something, yeah.
Like Natalia Dwyer playing Nancy, who Nancy's supposed to still be in high school. For some reason I thought she was out of high school.
I thought she was too, but she
Yeah,
still is.
she's still there. She's like 28 or 29. And it's just time to, and not let it die a slow, painful death. Like let it go on.
But next season's officially the last season, though, right?
It's time to time warp.
Yeah. We're gonna Avengers
Just
this
play
thing
that
and
song
just
the whole
say
time.
5 years from now.
Oh, snap. Finger snap, huh?
5
That's
years in
good.
daytime.
No, so excited for the second part though. Holy smokes. Like
Yeah.
I didn't feel like any of it was scary. Like you guys might think that's wild coming from me. There's definitely some thriller moments for sure.
Mhm.
But no, like I'm gonna hang you upside down naked and cut you in half type stuff.
Well, no,
I mean,
that was
There's very few things
there was
to reach that level, and that's not
Try the
creepy.
creepiest-
That's gross.
Probably the creepiest stuff for me was when they were back in the house. Like that stuff, maybe a little creepy. Old house,
Okay.
lights flickering on and off.
Mhm.
Probably more creepy than anything for me, but it was good.
You're more of a ghost creep guy than a monster creep guy, right?
Yeah. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, the rest of it, it wasn't. Yeah, it didn't seem like scary or creepy to me. I don't know.
Okay.
So
Fair enough.
Fair.
You've been spending more
Grounded
time
in
with us
reality.
two
anyways.
thumbs up.
Oh, that
Two
might be-
thumbs up.
Very
Do,
good.
do.
We got to get some sort of rating system for when we do stuff, so like you can be like, like, does it really get our stamp of approval from the whole group or not?
Oh,
No,
yeah,
just use
yeah.
a modified
have three-
Ashworth scale. That's a
We have
4.
like a three band group, so if we did the thumbs
Six
up,
thumbs up.
it's always going to be an odd number,
Yeah. And what?
Well, you know what I
could
mean?
be-
It could be sorry, not an odd number, but I mean, there's always going to be
Yeah.
a tiebreaker if we ever had a tie, right?
That's true.
Maybe it'll be a clean sweep.
I didn't know if someone lost a thumb in the last episode.
It's always going to be odds. Yeah. It was a long weekend, Jeremy.
Yeah, you guys had
Too
a
much
lot of
zip
fun.
lining.
So I don't know.
Yeah,
Lost
we didn't do
fingers.
any zip lining. So for those on YouTube, you can see all my fingies. Kept them all.
That's
Yeah.
smart.
But Nick
Scary.
at the bar at 1 a.m. with playing the knife game around his fingers, though, that's a little more dangerous.
Yeah, me and Neil Feist maybe.
Yeah.
We bellied up way too long.
Yeah,
Man, almost as smart as taking on students.
almost.
Wow.
That's too simple of a segue.
I liked it. Moving on to today's topic. Taking on interns, PT students. And I think I'll let you start, Nick. Kind of roll with probably start with kind of those initial challenges when you start taking on a student and
Yeah,
how you work
well,
your way through those and how that's changed maybe as you've gotten better at being a CI.
no, well, I haven't missed CI in a long time. I'll get to that as part of my breakdown, but maybe some distinction to lay out here for our listening audience would be
Perfect.
like as we talk interns more in the vein of like whether it's high school or undergraduate interns that are maybe doing that for some credits and get some exposure into the world of physical therapy versus PT students that are out there, as part of their final internship rotations, clinical rotations, as they're formally referred to.
Yep.
They have a little bit more experience, a lot more acumen when it comes to like the patient care piece and more interaction, more involvement. So kind of making the distinction there. And then even one more down the road or like fully licensed therapists going through like a residency program that are doing like a mentorship piece, which we're trying to grow and develop even further throughout the company. There already is, but yeah. So I mean, if you go back, make the challenges. I wrote down very few, really. If you're a confident enough clinician, very few. And I like the way that from as long as I've been with Big Stone, we don't take on students. We don't allow people to take on them until you're at least a year in practice. So you can get a little more confidence, you can get some familiarity with patient care and get some of that under your feet. But I think, there are some challenges if you take a really super green student who has some social awkwardness. I mean, that can be another challenge is broaching some of these issues that you have with patients where perhaps this person's not creating the most comfortable environment. They're not allowing care to proceed, in a kind of your normalized way. And there's a lot, I mean, that's a spectrum and it's broad and wide, I think, as far as what that could constitute. Sometimes it's, people who talk too much, don't talk at all, people who just say the wrong thing habitually, So, yeah, I think, I mean, those are obviously the challenges that I see that I've experienced. I'm not afraid to address them, never really have been. I know I had a couple awkward moments with my very first student who was actually a third year, if I'm recalling right. And she had a lot of insecurities to begin with. And I found myself quizzing her from time to time and, I wasn't sure what to expect. I remember I got quizzed a lot when I was doing my rotations, so I thought that was pretty normal. So I,
Put
was
an
quizzing her.
algorithm together for me.
Yeah, you remember that? Yeah.
Set
Yeah,
up a
that's a different
decision
story.
tree.
That'll be a different one when we really go back in time and mine like the challenging rotations of our own. That's
You're
cool.
like,
You remember
quizzing's
that.
not so bad.
Yeah,
That's
it could
cool.
be
You
way
remember
worse.
that. Yeah. That's pretty inside. But so this one stubborn student had a tendency to kind of like, I don't know, make excuses or try to rationalize why they got it wrong. Like and I actually got away from doing it in front of patients too, because I didn't want to create like an awkward, uncomfortable environment and put them in a weird situation either. So we just do it like after a patient, and she just get kind of feisty, and I'm like, maybe, and you're not always sure how you're processing it. Maybe I need thicker skin, who knows, right? But that was one where I was ready for her to be done. I think that's just the best way to put it. Like it was probably the only student I ever took that was more of a challenge, more of a burden. And it comes time, because as I like to think that I'm pretty serious and pretty straightforward. And I'm at the end of the day, when you're doing the CPI, I'm still kind of a soft-hearted guy. And I'll rationalize poor performance, and I'll kind of give the benefit of the doubt and write some positive comments and all that stuff. So, where maybe the best thing to do would have been give some tough love. But those are, I guess, starting with initial challenges, those are the ones that came to my mind. I don't know about you fellas.
Did you ever have to like get a clinical education person involved with the student because they weren't meeting your performance?
I'm guessing you have.
See,
I actually
right, go
haven't.
ahead.
I've been very lucky. I've never had to do that either. But I just think like I'm sure I will eventually at some point. I did have to like send a observation student home once. Just they weren't engaged, and I said I'm not going to waste my time, my patient's time, your time. You just go home. If you can change your attitude, you can come back tomorrow.
You're a freaking weirdo. We should have sent home. Should have sent back to his school, but he ended up quitting anyways. I guess as soon as he was done with our rotation, he dropped out.
Was that PTA fella?
Yeah, it was. Let's not name drop that.
I don't know who it was. That was before my time.
It's not really fair to
I had
name drop that, but that was not good.
I had to when I was in Marshall, I had to pull a guy out of the room. He was an observation student too.
I remember.
And he was just like arguing over Twins baseball, like with this person, and and like I don't know if you'd call it demonstrative way. Like, I mean, it's like very rude. Like, and I was like, hey, I will be right back in. And like, I think we're actually doing some manual to like an upper trap or something. Like, I don't know. Person was like face down. I'm like, I pulled the kid out of the room. I'm like, I don't care if you love the Twins, you hate the Twins. If they don't, shut up. I'm like, we're not here to argue. Like, this person is paying to be here. Shut your face. Like, if you can't figure out like a better way to do this.
Well, that you're speaking to that whole spectrum that I was talking about now. Like when I said it's wide, it's broad, right? Because I mean, there's the biggest thing that you don't know until you have them out for a while is what's their level of social awareness. Like, do they know the difference between playful banter? Because you could do that, right? We've done that.
Correct.
Every Packer fan that I end up working with, I think we have amazing rapport because we just pile it on each other, right?
Yeah, and then when they win, they come in their scarves and their hats, and they're like,
yeah, that's great, right? But like, no,
tell them all how far things are from Green Bay.
Yeah, they love that. Yeah, know how to read an audience though, and if it's not playful anymore, or they're over it. It's not time to keep freaking lacing it in. I think the same thing goes for like people who get even experienced clinicians who hang their hats so much on small talk.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to keep talking about the weather and turn this into a 30-minute talk on the weather. It's like, did you bore? And if the patient just checks out, they're like, they don't care anymore, dude.
Yeah. They're not engaged.
And I'm telling you, I mean, like, we've talked about this ad nauseum, Nick, but I'm like, man, I've had discussions on politics, religion, everything under the sun that people tell you not to talk about
Yeah.
in the clinic.
Yeah.
I will talk about it all, but I also know that person that I can talk about it with, and the person that
Yeah.
I should completely deflect to the weather. Yeah, you know, like it's just, yeah, being able, like, in, God dang, the more I do this, like, the more I realize, like, that is, you know, a tough taught skill, the ability to read the room. And like, I feel like a lot of people have it or they don't, and it's just
Mhm. I
tough
think you're
to
right.
teach.
I think it can be coached up to a point.
It can
but,
be, yep.
But some people are blessed with just really, really great skills that way.
And I say this,
seen
I'm
the
like,
gamut for sure.
and I look at it and I'm like, God dang, like 9.9 times out of 10, I would much rather have the less skilled clinician that can do that and can read people and can, you know, interact with people than the
Yeah.
person that's on top of every research, every technique, that is just a robot, you know. And I've had both.
Mhm.
I've had both. Yeah, that's what I would say. Like, to me, is the challenge is, like, I think a lot of people, like, at least on the student level, like most people are fairly like skilled, I'd say, like, and have the didactic knowledge, but it's like, you know, how independent I'm going to let them be is a lot of time dictated on their people skills, you know. And right, the soft skills are the
Yeah.
hard, they're the
'Cause
hard
see,
skills.
I almost think and maybe I default too easily with safety, but like, you know, safety is obviously we talked about this before way back. We talked about injuries and stuff at work and stuff. I think we run a pretty safe practice. You know, I think PT in general is fairly safe. So once you get beyond that stuff, you're right. I think you got to be able to really trust them with the patient, and they can make some progressions. Think critically, like, right. Don't just, you're not just following through on the same thing over and over. So Casey, you take on, I just want to ask this, you take on about as many students or more than anybody I know.
Yeah,
So
I guess
what
in
are the
my
challenges that
time, I'm
have?
right. I've probably had 30 some students, I suppose. And, right around there,
You-
I think last time we counted.
In your career,
Yeah.
how
Not this
long
year,
have you
Jeremy.
been in? 11 years?
12 years, yeah.
12
So-
years? Okay.
Yeah, I take 4 to 5 a year now, pretty
Woo!
consistent. So yeah, I love it though. Yeah, I think initial challenges for me are trying to balance your time with their experience too, to say, you know, I
Yep.
want you to see me work with these patients. I want you to work with patients yourself, and I want you to do paperwork and try to get it all done, you know, in our allotted 80% productivity, you know, time frame. And that's tough because it takes them a long time to do things. And, you know, they're learning the system and it's asking a lot. You know, and I don't want to say, all right, you see a patient, take the next hour, write the note while I see somebody, because sometimes there's just good things to see and you want them to see as much as they can while they're there. And it does vary whether it's their first one, second one, third one, fourth one.
Yeah,
So you do have to remind yourself, all right, this is their first one. Like, let's give them the safe things, the easy things, really let them get comfortable, versus this is the fourth one. So I do expect you to do all this stuff. But
How do you
know,
tackle that? How do you personally tackle that? And again, I know it's a spectrum, but like typically,
yeah, it's, you know,
how
I
do you
think
balance that?
you know, and the truth of the matter is, you know, sometimes it's staying after work to go over their notes, or come in early to go over their notes, just to give them that opportunity. You know, that's the sacrifice I think I'm willing to make when I take students.
Yeah.
And then you make up the time. You know, you have a counselor or something, and then you actually have time to sit through and go through that stuff and really hammer it out with the students. And because I'm not a big double upper, I guess I typically like to be with my students one-on-one. Unless it's a situation where somebody shows up, needs to be seen, it's legal, the insurance is okay with it,
Mhm.
you know, then I'll do it. But typically I don't double book, so that does give
thought-
me some.
I thought you had them treating and you were just like, all right, this week's intro, let's go.
Yeah,
Got a
right.
3-hour block.
You know, and I do walk away. You know, I don't, you know, as long as, again, it's an insurance that lets the patients treat. You know, I do try to walk away to give them some of that autonomy, because I can tell when I
that's
start.
as much as anything, right?
That's huge. That's
Yeah.
huge.
And when I start doing that with students, you know, end of that first week, beginning of that second week, you see a big shift in their demeanor and their comfort level too, when you walk out for a few minutes and you go grab a drink
Yep.
of water, a cup of coffee, and come back. Like they feel better. I think it takes some of that, like, oh, I'm gonna mess up all the time, and he's constantly watching me. So
Yeah, it's huge. I think it's
that
a huge
helps.
psychological shift.
And I think,
on
you
the-
know, just communicating with them. Some students, I do have to say, all right, you're going to see 75% of the patients, and the other 25% of the time you're going to do your paperwork, because it does have to get done. It can't.
So
sit
then, are
open
they
forever.
entry level? Do you give them entry level?
No, I wouldn't then
Okay.
at that point. I mean,
All
but
right.
again, if it's your fourth one, that is the expectation. Is
I see. I
should
almost
be able
had.
to be
I think with
gone.
everyone I had, I gave them at least a taste at some point.
Mhm.
Like, hey, you got to run. You got to have a full day, at least one day, and even that's not the full deal. Like, they're not doing
No.
point of service. They're not, returning calls to physicians or returning calls from other patients. I mean, they're just going through a day.
Yeah. And that's always tough, because like our setting is, I don't know, kind of specialty too. So it's one of those deals where it's some of those patients are probably beyond entry level patients to begin with. So I do give them a little leeway that way, because and now as our practice has gotten bigger, I share the patients a little more, or share the students more, and say, hey, you need to go do geriatrics for a day, or do ortho a couple hours a week, just so they can go there and just hammer out some total knees and feel really comfortable. It's a nice break for
And
them too.
It's good to see a different thought process too, right? Like,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
I'm sure you see that within your clinic too, that like people approach problems a slightly different way, and that's good. It's good to see. It's good,
and that's
for
a
people to
good
feel up.
moment, if we can find time, then, whether it's at the end of the week or, Fridays, we kind of go over the week and we set our goals for the next week. So it's like, if I sent them with somebody, I go, hey, what was the differences? What do they do different than me? And, I usually know how everybody
How
And
are
operates.
why are they?
I am.
Why are
How
they
better
wrong?
than I-
Yeah. How many
Yeah.
trigger points? How many trigger points did you see get
How are they
treated?
better than me, and how are they wrong?
Yeah. Give me a reason to fire them.
them.
Use them as a spy.
Okay, all right.
No, but so I think that's sometimes, letting the students go see other people too gives me time to catch up and manage that a little bit. And then I think the other initial challenge that's a struggle for me is like letting your students struggle sometimes, and not so much with the treatment part, because like you said, Nick, you gotta be safe. But I love the eval and the education, and doing an eval and then telling the patient, this is what I think's going on, this is what you need to
Yeah.
do, this is what I can do for you, this is what you can do for yourself, those classic questions. The watching that struggle initially in my first couple of years was brutal. Like, I just wanted to jump in, but now I'm confident enough in myself to go, if this student totally butchers this thing, I can swing in and save it. That's no big deal. Like, I don't think I'll lose the therapeutic alliance with most patients. There's a few that maybe come in with a ton of biopsychosocial stuff where I'm like, the wrong message here could be really
be bad.
significantly damning.
Yeah.
But for the most part, for most of the patients, it's like, oh yeah, struggle through it. And I just sit and smile. But that was a tough initially. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
addressing those little things.
Stare into my quarter zip.
Yeah,
Stare.
I unzip it just a little bit just to mess with them. Yeah. And yeah, like you guys said too, kind of addressing those like social issues sometimes with students is hard, because how do you tell somebody like, dude, you're terrible at talking to people, or like you're super
Well,
annoying?
I think you.
know,
I
You're
think
not likable at all.
Yeah.
You're not likable at all.
Well, I think
how do you
first-
spin it?
Yeah. We'll try to give them the benefit of the doubt and find out. I mean, for me, I'm thinking of like, so I have not taken a student in 5 years, five and a half.
Was that
because
your
one of my
last
other-
one? Was
one of
that
the
your
other-
last one?
Who?
Was that your last one?
5.5 years ago, yeah.
Dang.
That was Lambert, guest of
Oh,
the show.
Landy.
Yep, friend of the show.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Big
so-
friend, big shout out. Saw him this weekend.
Yeah.
He's got a great haircut.
But part of that was like,
Solid.
I wasn't seeing enough patient care. Like, and I was handing them off, right? If I had
Mhm.
management duties, management time, I hand them off to somebody else and give them that, like what you're talking about, same thing, right?
Yeah.
Go-
And I'm
go
right
hear
on
from
that
somebody
edge
else.
with what you're experiencing
Yeah.
now, where I'm like, man, do I need to either have a full-time therapist that I just share with, or, maybe
Yeah.
drop back, just because there are times where
Yeah.
I'm in meetings for 4 hours, just on and
Yeah.
off throughout the day.
Yeah. And you want to keep them, they need that additional, I mean, they just need as much time around patients
Time.
as they can get,
Time.
Mhm.
So I think what helps though is maybe letting it be less about them, right? Finding about the issue first. What's the issue here? Is it just you're too anxious around patients, or
Mhm.
Jeremy's instance was he's just way too, I don't know, aloof and lacking social awareness, right? That's a
Yeah.
different issue. That's more a personal thing.
Yeah.
But I remember like having a student who was completely crashing and burning with like 90% of those patient interactions because they were trying so damn hard to be perfect. And
Yeah.
you just see it, they were just freezing and it sucked. So to your point, I felt like I had to jump in towards the end of every session because, hey, I was co-owning that practice too. And
Mhm.
I don't want these people no showing, or flaking out the rest of the way because they're concerned, hey, I'm just gonna be slapping a student that
Yeah, for
can't
sure.
even talk, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love that
it's-
social awareness. I've had some awesome moments. Like I said, I like to let people struggle. I had one guy loved it. We use the, limping with your back. You never let your muscles relax. That's why you feel stiff all the time. That move your hand around and then make a fist and try to move your wrist, and how much freer
Mhm.
the motion is if your hand is relaxed versus in a fist. And the student looks at the patient and he explains it and he's like, so you gotta quit fisting yourself. And I'm like, and I'm just sitting in the corner. Right. And then I obviously, you guys know me.
Jeremy, we had moments like that. Like
I instantly had to
before
say
going in your
something.
room.
He keeps
Oh,
going.
God.
She's looking at me. I'm looking at her. Like her boyfriend's in the room looking at both of us. Like, did he just say that? And I'm like, we're gonna
I
stop
didn't
the
tell
session.
anyone to
I
stop
called it.
fisting
Yeah.
themselves.
I said that's terminology we can't use
And-
anymore. That was a good one. I remember another student, we were in the gym and I was working with a patient, and there was another person in the gym that was a pretty regular there. She was recovering from some long-standing illness, so just generally was in the gym every day on her own, working independently. And he was about I suppose he was about 6'6", and this gal was about 4'11".
Oh, no.
And we had one of these like I don't know, multi-hip machines where they're on a pretty good
Yeah.
platform, and so she was probably still a foot shorter than him on that thing, and they're talking. I don't know, she was like talking about being small, and she's like, yeah, I just wish I was a little taller. And again, I'm working with the patient and he looks down at her and he goes, well, I could give you a few inches if you want them. And I was like,
That's in your head. I don't know.
said, oh.
What do you think he meant?
It's out of context. Yeah.
Out of context. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
We
those
met
were
in the office and I said, that's a great conversation you had. That made my day.
That's
those
what
were
she
the
said.
Tough. Those were the tough parts.
Yeah.
How
Those
about the
are also
rewarding
great.
stuff? Let's talk
Hearing
about
your
the
students say
flowery
that stuff.
That is rewarding.
Yeah,
That's what I live for.
Yeah, that's 100%. The bad stuff's the good stuff. No, for me, I would say seeing your students succeed. Again, 30 some students over the course of 12 years. I've got to see students, obviously all of them graduated, all of them become therapists, and to see some become
All of them?
managers. Yeah,
All of them?
made it, I think so. I can't think of any that didn't.
He's like, oh.
We do need a producer pretty soon to fact check these things.
Yeah, right.
Oh, go ahead. I'll
Bold
give you a
claims.
list.
We'll dig up the dirt.
These guys have, one of the therapists, a really successful private practice out in Illinois, another one running a women's health program, a hospital out in Wisconsin, like just cool stuff, just to see that. They're taking students. Some of them have, moved on and started teaching. Like, it's just cool just to be part of that. I talk about, in the company, seeing my, my little clinics grow and succeed and be happy. But then I also have this like wide net. That's still pretty cool too, and you run into these people at combined sections or any other conference, or, it's just fun to see.
Yeah.
And, I apologize for how terrible I was, because me being a CI 7 years ago is a lot different than me being a CI now. And it's crazy the stuff I used to teach. And how I've changed so much. And it's like, hey,
sure. Yeah.
it's like,
We all do.
They
we all
probably
gotta
think
get
I'm
better,
a
right?
real dumb now, but
Yeah, but what clinician? I mean, like, right? What clinician would say that? Not let alone a CI. What you're teaching, like, we should all be evolving. Like, that's just part of the growth process. So, like, if anyone ever took like any type of, yeah, you were shitty. Like, come on, man. Like, you're like, everyone's everyone's changing constantly. So
Yeah.
I do believe my students would tell me right to my face. We're pretty open.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that. It's
Um,
just like you're always trying to be the best you can be, and that evolves from year to year. Right?
Yeah,
Like,
so that's one of my favorite parts. I think another really rewarding aspect is that challenging your thought process and making me challenge my own
100%.
thought process. You know, because I try to do a really good job of explaining why I do things with my patients when I have students. And sometimes I don't always do that when I don't have students. I don't necessarily all the time with my patient go, this is why I'm doing this, for these reasons. Maybe I should. But you know, you get in, you talk about the Packers instead of explaining why you're moving their shoulder before you take them through a range of motion. But with the student, you know, and then
because the Packers suck.
you know, and his students will come back and, you know, like, hey, you know, why weren't you worried about, you know, myelopathy with this patient? Or, you know, because some of that stuff, we all know textbook versus clinic isn't always a 1-for-1 match. And, you know, you get, I wouldn't say sloppy, but, you know, there's certain things where you're like, no, like this person's clearly had these issues going on for a long time. It's not like, it's not caught equina stuff, you know, like, but you have to justify that stuff, and sometimes they make good points, and you know, students are really good about forcing you to go back to the basics too, you know, and
Yeah.
I think that's huge. So
yeah, that's fair.
you know, 4 or 5 times a year I have to sit down and, you know, really justify everything I do, and that's good, you know.
Keeps you sharp. Keeps you sharp.
Does keep you very sharp. And then the last part that's rewarding to aspect of taking students is just creating that, you know, hiring pool too, as you know, you get through in your career and you have 20-30 people you can give a call to if a job opens up somewhere, and you know, being able to help people through their career that way too is pretty cool.
Cool. Yeah.
So, yeah, those are some of my favorite parts. And yeah, hearing the dumb things they say, that's great.
I love it. No, that's cool. Like, I would agree. Like the rewarding part, like seeing somebody go from like a hurricane, right, Nick?
Yeah.
To like just kind of coming into their own. I mean, like, I agree, Casey. Like, I think it's great to be able to step away from a student too. I'm like, I tell people, like, especially if they're in their last, you know, 1 or 2 clinicals, it's like, yeah, it's one thing if I'm in the room the whole time looking at you and like giving you a side eye if you say something like, oh, that's weird, or that's wrong, or you know,
Jim, just the whole question, like,
you're like,
and then they're like,
and then you jump in and you're like, whoa, this is what it really is. Or, you know,
suprascapular nerve. Shit.
or just that, you know, like that idea that like, hey, like you're going to be independent in 2 months. Like you're going to take your boards and you're going to be independent on your own. And like, I even thought of that, like just kind of looking through this week's episode, and I'm like, Nick, I think like being, you know, you were my second CI in the course of clinical education. I thought you gave a lot of leeway, and then it's like you look back as like you start as clinician, you're like, there is nobody in here for the freaking 5th vestibular patient I've gotten in a week to give an answer to. You know, it's like,
is like, this a posterior canal? Does it matter?
Yeah, right. So, but it's
I think it is.
I was sweating a lot in those days. But it's like, you know, again, just part of that growth process. And I kind of draw on that as a CI too. And I'm just like, man, if I can prepare you as much as possible, like these things are going to happen, right? Like happens to everybody, but if I can prepare you as much as possible so that like this is taken in stride, or, you know, some really, you know, common questions that people ask that can be taken as like, well, yeah, why are you in pain? Or, well, how can I help you? You know, and just those things that you look at now and you're like, yeah, this is like a pretty common question that everyone wants answered. And how can I put my own Jeremy or Casey or Nick spin on this to make it my own? You know, I look at that as like, to me as a CI, that's me doing the best possible, you know, job, you know, to prepare them for the working world. So, yeah, it's pretty cool to see somebody come from like, you know, a student to like leaving and being like, man, this person could be or is like they're ready to be a clinician. They're ready to be on their own. That's pretty
Great point,
freaking
yeah.
sweet.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's that probably definitely most rewarding part is watching that growth happen right in front of your eyes. And as you guys have mentioned already, just seeing people kind of grow professionally throughout their careers as well, and keep tabs on them and maintain some of those relationships. I think that's I think there's so many rewarding aspects to what we do. Even if it's not a PT student, if it's like an undergrad, or I have taken quite a number of undergrad interns who kind of really helped me out of the elite performance, especially in those formative years. I think I had one in like 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So 5 years in a row, and building those relationships, seeing those guys go off in the physical therapy school, get back into the workforce. I still stay in contact with at least a couple of them pretty routinely, and good dudes.
I can't wait to get my first mass comm intern in here on the show.
Yeah, that's actually. But I think MSUM had a program back in the day when I was up there. Pretty good one. But
just have somebody in the background running numbers for me, crunching numbers.
That's fun. Yeah. That's fun, and you're always like happy to do a letter rec, get those people in PT school. I think that's awesome. But one of the things, like I'm throwing my hat back in the ring to do some orthopedic residency mentorship for the first time, also in 5 years. I'm going to be doing that this fall. Ooh. And that haven't done that. I've had 2 students through that. That was really enjoyable for me because you're dealing with more seasoned, experienced clinicians, and you can really, I think.
Hopefully, I gave some higher level questions.
Oh, it was much, but you weren't even bad. You were this silly. No, but I think the only awkward thing there, as you said, was like we have to record. Was it like a 10 to 15 minute patient case study dialogue between the 2 of us, and that itself was just awkward a little bit. But
you know what though, that's better than uploading the 37-page deal on the MOSC every 3 years after your list.
Yeah. Your case study there.
I would take that upload any day.
It did,
now.
To that credit, I didn't like having to fill out a format, but it kept me, keeps you sharp, keeps you thinking critically on like what you're doing. Like
like Casey said too, it's like you can get in those times where you're like, you don't, you're more involved in like the soft skill stuff with people, and I try to make that a point with everybody to be like, hey, I want you to like at least one time at the eval, if not multiple times, like, hey, I want you to have an open forum to ask questions. Like if I'm asking you to do something, I should have a really dang good reason as to why I am. And if you don't have questions, that's fine too. But I want to give you that, just like, please ask questions. Like that's why we're here. And I like try to put a like really like bold-faced name on it right away, because so many people are like, yeah, like I went to my doctor and they told me this, and they're like, do you ask questions? They're like, yeah, no. Yeah. And that's important. Well, like I said, whether it's just our patient care or whether it's with students too. And like you said, Casey too, like I think hopefully with students, it pushes us to a higher level, or hopefully with orthopedic residency students, it pushes us to a higher level as to like, why am I really selecting this intervention, or what's my rationale?
Well, I'll tell you what, so I think I agree with you completely. We should be thinking that way. And I'll be honest, I've kind of taken a different, these last few years have been a different track for me, where a lot of that stuff, it's been nice to do clinic care, but the level or the intensity, hasn't been there.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to kind of marry that stuff, because you go through so much where you're just chasing the next thing. You're pushing to be the best, right? And some of that's taken on students, getting that OCS. And then you start reflecting back on how you come across other people, right or wrong, right? All of us have different weaknesses and strengths, and sometimes you come off strong and people are like, okay, you lack humility, right? So then your pendulum swings back, and I spent these last few years just like trying so hard not to like be that guy, right? But now I'm kind of like feeling this calling, And I was really, some of what's really speaking to me right now is Cameron Haynes has a book he put out called Endure. It's about just like, it's no different than so many other things, but just channeling what you need to be the absolute best every day. And God gave you talents. So you're only letting him down and yourself down if you're not putting your best foot forward every single day. Doesn't mean you're going to brag about yourself, but have the confidence to do that and push yourself more and more. And that's really speaking to me. And it's getting me to want to do these things again, right? And get back into that stuff, like do more journal club, be contributing in that stuff, speaking to these groups. And, you know, I'm at my best when I'm stimulated that way mentally.
No, I'd agree with you on that. Like I mean, you gave me that like gentle reminder the other day. Like, I mean, get on journal club, and I haven't. And it's like to be in that realm where it's like, hey, like these are like, this is just a group of your peers that are just highly educated that will challenge you, or at least present, you know, potentially a new topic, or present a new way to think of an old topic. Like that's good. And like I say over and over, like that's just like a shift that I need too, because I say over and over, like our staff is young. Our staff here is young. And I say that like to this
you're
day,
the old guy. I mean, what's that like for you? I mean, that's another topic, but you're like the old guy in the clinic.
See, that's what I miss about like when we were in Marshall. It was like I was the rook, right? Like the rookie, right? And you could sit there and you could be.
But you transition through it.
Yeah, but you could, and not. I wouldn't say that was ever in a bad way, but you could just like kind of throw stuff out and be like, why are we doing this? Like, why do we do this? Why do we do that? You know, and like I like strive for that. Like, I love that debate. I love that. Like, even if we're on two polar ends of the, you know, the topic, like we can have that debate, and I feel like I can defend why I do it, and somebody else can too, and we can go away from that. Or, you know, you can change your practice, which is great. Like either way, like you can either defend why you're doing it and have a good reason, or you could be like, that might be a spot I need to change. And I think that to me is like the key to having a successful practice, like a successful career, because it's so easy to get into ruts and be like, yeah, this is the way like I treat this is the way I treat this. And, you know, or this was the research when I came out of school, and I'm like, yeah, that's already 10 years ago, you know. It's like just easy to fall into those things and be like, I've got it. And I'll never forget, like right before we graduated, they go, you know, like, hey, like, I forget the time frame they use, 10, 15, 20 years. They're like, in that amount of time, like 50% of this is going to be false, and 50% of what you learned is going to hold true. And your job is to figure out which is which, right? You know, it's like just an ever-changing field, and that's the cool part. So,
you know, as radical as on that same notion, as radical as a lot of the P&E stuff was when it first started getting out there, what probably my favorite line that I heard Adrian Lowe say at the very first course I went to, because he's like, this isn't it. This isn't the only thing. And he's like, if you're ever around if you're ever in a class where, you know, the instructor is like, this is it. This is the cure. This is how you do it. He's like, get out.
Beep, beep, beep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because nothing's the only thing. Right?
Correct.
We haven't come close to figuring that out. And every human being's so different, right? So it's just, it takes that constant honing, because what worked, you know, what did work for, and maybe it does, it gives you a clinical experience piece, but maybe what worked for 99% of your patients doesn't work for that 100%. But let's be flexible enough to learn from that.
Yeah. And
students too.
Yeah, and I would say that is one area that students have gotten a lot better at over the years. I would say in the 7 some odd years that I've been taking students, because I didn't take students for the first 4 or 5 years of my career, is definitely that they are a little more prepared for words that hurt, words that heal. You know, that kind of piece, the what patients need to know part. They're a lot better at that stuff than I ever was when I was a student. And having a nice delivery, and just being aware of the biopsychosocial model and the social determinants of health. I think they're covering that stuff more too, and just being good mid-level providers and knowing to take vitals. And, my students are better at taking vitals than my staff are. It just, that stuff's good. I think they've gotten a lot better at that stuff and a lot better at critical thinking. And maybe that's just a byproduct where I take students from. I guess I shouldn't say that for every school, but we use like the IFC model.
Is it a lot of University of South Dakota patients?
Zero, I refuse. I've never taken EOT in my life.
I figured those would be the highest level.
Yeah, I'm not smart enough to take those students.
Yeah.
They don't let me on.
It might challenge your preconceived notions too much. I mean, I don't know. I just
they come in and they teach you.
Yeah, right. Maybe someday I'll be student of the year.
I agree with you though. I wrote that on my notes. Like, they're coming out with more exposure to PNE, more exposure to dry needling, less modality stuff. I mean, just the guys. So I haven't taken students. We still have a number of them down here that I interact with, rub elbows with, and get to know, and I get their thoughts on it, because I like to probe about modalities too. Just like, what are you guys' take on it? What are you getting in school nowadays? Because to your point on old clinicians, old practitioners learning new tricks, right? We still have that at some locations, people leaning on ultrasound yet. With like zero evidence, there hasn't been evidence for decades on that. And talking to students, they're like, we're basically told it's like old antiquated stuff and stuff you used to do, stuff you used to see a lot. Now you just don't get it. Like,
aware of
that's
it.
the way it should be, right?
Yeah, I'm impressed with the students. Like I said, the critical thinking is so much better, and not having to have algorithms, just being able to work through thought processes. And I don't know, that stuff's good. They're a lot better that way. So
awesome. Any closing remarks on this before we move on?
No, I think we covered it all. For therapists listening, I recommend taking students. Throw your name in the hat. It takes a little humility to take students sometimes, but I think it's totally worth it, and I think it makes you a better clinician. And and the next step of teaching too, I like that same thing, man. Teach a class. That's a blast too. That's the next step.
Yeah. Any students out there? Any students out there? Come on, say I want to hear Big Stone. Get one of these fun dudes to teach you up.
Always willing to take kids. So
learn. Well,
put you on the quote wall.
Now we're on the top 5. These are this week, without any further ado, the top 5 television series that had to have been released, had to have their debut episode in the year 2000 or more recent. Okay, so like Frasier doesn't work. We can't put Seinfeld in there. We can't put Friends in there, etc. So
what shows are those?
Never heard of them.
Oh, because that's going to be another top 5 for another time.
It is.
I'm into it.
Yeah, I'll do it. But who wants to go first? I think I kicked off last week. I mean, I can certainly do it again.
I can go first. I
make another Jeremy sandwich again.
Yeah, back to it. I didn't like the taste of the last one. Yeah. It worked better that way. Yeah, this was a fun list to put together. Lots of good shows since 2000. So yeah, and just kind of, you got to remind yourself what year everything was and to look back. And I always, I think I kind of do it the same way Nick does. I throw my list together, feel pretty solid about it, and then I go back and make sure I didn't miss anything. Look at other people's lists.
Brief little list right there. Top 5 over there.
So yeah, it was fun. And then to really think of like how much I like that show in the moment versus how much I like it now, and did it hold up? There's some of that.
Lots of considerations. Yes.
Lots of things to consider it. Because I would definitely say my number 5 aired from 2005 to 2013, so quite a long running show. Didn't like it very much when it was on. If I'm gonna be honest, I was not one of the folks caught up in the storm, didn't watch it a whole lot, but now later a huge fan of it, and that would be the American version of The Office.
Oh, that's your Fifth?
Yeah. No, this is a
Oh
killer
my
list, Jeremy.
God.
Yeah. So again, this probably kicked off, or at least was one of the main ones where it was like this eclectic group of people, and you really had to watch every week to like
Yeah.
get used to the characters and to find the idiosyncrasies that made these people funny. They weren't typically the 90s sitcoms, you could pick any episode from any season and they were all kind of the same. You just dropped in. You didn't need to know anything about it other than maybe the situation a little bit. Where shows like The Office, Community, 30 Rock, all these NBC shows, Parks and Rec, like you really had to almost fight through the first season. I would say all four of those shows, the first seasons were struggles.
A little slow.
Little slow. The jokes didn't always hit. But then once you made it through 8 seasons and you went back, you can watch the first season and just love it. Like I've seen episodes on the first season of The Office a ton now, and I think they're hilarious. But I remember just thinking like, this show's never going to hold. Like it's just not that funny. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I had a lot of people that were like, dude, you got to watch The Office. It's hilarious. And I'm like, boy, I've seen 10, 12 episodes. It's not that great. Like characters are dumb. They just stare at the camera all the time. So, but now I can look back. I mean, Steve Carell's performance is just phenomenal. He's probably the most likable, unlikable character ever made. And just the heart he put into that performance is phenomenal. I mean, him alone watching, and he is definitely, I would say once he left, probably puts it down on the list a little more. If they had stopped at season 7, it might be higher on my list. Just
it's a fair critique.
It tarnishes you a little bit.
After 7 seasons, you guys.
Yeah.
I don't think you guys are giving it a fair shake, but definitely
I've watched
Steve
it a lot.
Carell.
I haven't ranked it, Jeremy. You haven't heard my list yet.
Yeah, maybe it's number 1.
I have basically modeled all my management / leadership after Steve Carell.
That's fair. I'm more of a Stanley type guy. That's my management style. I just sit and do crosswords, but
the Dementors. Oh god.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many awesome moments. Yeah, we could do a whole cast on The Office probably because it's definitely
okay. Fine, we'll go to my number 5.
Yeah, that's my number 5. I hope number 5's The Office.
All right, J-Bone, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is it was on ABC, How to Get Away with Murder. I don't know if you guys watched that or not.
No, go on, tell me about it.
Is this the one where like the teacher kills her husband and then the kids try to cover it up, something along those lines?
Kind of along those lines.
Oh yeah, my wife was a fan.
My wife got me into it too. And once I started, I couldn't stop. It's a Shonda Rhimes, like she's pretty good. You have this law professor that gets this kind of group of interns, and you have like kind of multiple murders that happen, but they know the law, so they know how to cover it up, and a lot of drama, a lot of intrigue. I won't give any spoiler alerts, but that was a good series. If you haven't hit one, I think there's 5 series or 5 seasons on that, maybe 6. If I'm not mistaken, and it's worth it. Give it a watch. How to Get Away with Murder, my number 5.
All right.
Yeah, I've seen hit and miss. I ran into the issue of like the slow develop on that show. Like
it is a slower developing one.
It was definitely one where it's like, boy, you probably could have did 2 seasons out of those 5 and had a really tight show. But But that's if you're a major network show, I mean that's because they do 20 episodes in a season or whatever. I mean you're just forced to have to do filler when you do these major network shows. You're definitely right. The advantage of cable and streaming platforms is you can do a lot tighter show.
Yeah.
So it's hard to fault.
Check it out.
Check it out, Nolan.
I will. How to Get Away with Murder.
I will.
Okay. All right. My number 5 really only has 3 seasons to it. They exist in the same universe, but very different stories. Or not very different, but unrelated stories. True Detective, HBO series. Really on the strength of seasons 1 and 3. Season 2, I don't believe is as bad as a lot of people made it out to be. I just think season 1 was so epic. and incredibly good. I think season 1 of True Detective still. I'll see how Stranger Things goes this year, but might be the best season of anything. I don't know if you really call it that. The use of the timeline jumping, which season 3 does very well as well with Mahershala Ali.
Wow.
And kind of retelling it and remembering it. So amazing performances by Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson. Kind of big marks for both those guys, but yeah, I think I got sucked so into that, and great mystery, great elements to it, and awesome performances. So True Detective is my number.
I just learned. I've never heard of this show.
Wow, really?
Really?
Yeah,
No.
I've always heard the first season's just phenomenal, but that was an HBO show, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I've never watched it either, just based on the platform it was on. But yeah, I've always heard it's really good.
That looks awesome.
It's got a little bit of like
Amy. I could see Amy just
type,
loving it.
Yeah, I bet you
mythos
would.
behind it. Is that right?
Not so much. I mean, there's not.
It comes up with
There's like a tippy toe supernatural element, but really not. I mean,
Okay.
it's like there's some cultish things going on in the first season. So.
I produced it, and I get like Sherlock, Breaking Bad, Dexter, like I don't know, as like similar shows. That looks awesome.
It's really good.
I'm genuinely excited about this. Like I have never heard of that show.
Go check out season 1. I know Amy would love this stuff because she's all into serial killers and they're trying to solve
that's
all
awesome.
these serial murders. So and the southern layout, I mean, I think it's in Louisiana.
Yeah.
It's that's a life of its own too. Just really cool. That's my number 5, True Detective.
Ooh, I like it.
Good choice. I've heard good things. My number 4, very short series as well, 28 episodes from 2003 to 2006. And we've talked about it a lot on this show. It was one of those shows where like I couldn't wait every week to talk about it, which is, an interesting thing that's gone away a little bit as we've moved away from TV. But it was like, oh man, I can't wait to talk to my buddies about this the next day. And that was Chappelle Show. Chappelle Show. I mean, every week, man.
That almost made my list.
We had to sit down. We got together with my buddies. I was in college at that time, and I don't know if a show's ever made me laugh that hard, start to finish. It was short. That's probably why it's a little lower on my list because it felt like it left a little bit on the table. But like, I don't ever remember a bad episode in those 28. And I mean, that stuff.
He had some filler skits. But you're right. Very strong
skit shows. They're not all gonna hit
blouses
for the most part.
The stuff that hit.
Yeah, and every episode had something that hit. It wasn't like I mean, I can watch SNL and like literally sit through an episode of SNL, come away just with nothing. Yeah, I mean Tron, Tyrone. I mean, dude became the richest person in America on a hot hand of dice. I mean, that's there's just stuff like that. I mean, it was a culture thing at the time. It would be, I suppose, I probably should go back and watch it now.
Rewatch it. I did about 6 months ago, and man, those skits they're not PC today.
Yeah.
But holy smokes, they're funny.
You don't know me, Joe Rogan.
Yeah. It was good. So yeah, that was my number 4.
Awesome.
I love the Chappelle Show.
All right, Jeremy,
Still
what's your
to this day?
In a shocking development, the white people draft Condoleezza Rice.
Amazing moments.
So good. So this is like probably more than like again, like you get a lot of timepiece stuff with me, like versus like how good the show was. This was like PT school for me. It was Psych.
On my short list for sure, probably my 6 or 7.
I'm telling you, between Sean and Gus, I loved how right, like they think he's psychic, but he's just using his powers of observation all the time.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stupid slapstick comedy, but I think it worked. I forget what it was, like 7 or 8 seasons. Mm-hmm. That was like always in the background while I was studying. Like I didn't have cable, so it was on Netflix, so it was just like always on going, and it's just like, I don't know, brings me back to that crappy tiny 1-bedroom apartment in Vermilion. It's good.
Michelle was really into Psych and like huge into Psych, and I enjoyed it. thing was it like a 10 p.m. slot on USA?
See, I didn't ever watch it while it was like on
Oh, okay.
TV. It was pure like Netflix. So you just would fire
yeah, okay.
episode after episode after episode.
Gotcha.
After episode.
Yeah.
So
'Cause I think
I didn't watch it week after week, but it
Yeah,
was
we didn't
like,
have cable either. Like when I was in
I didn't-
college, or even when we've never had cable. I've never had cable since I graduated high school. So we always just bought the DVDs when they came out.
Oh, you did? Yeah.
So
See-
that's how I took it in. You know, the seasons would come out 6 months after they aired, and then we'd buy them and hammer through them that way. So
I was
it's just
right
a
on the
great show.
cusp. I was right on the cusp, but like I had like the Netflix plan where you got like 2 movies a month and then you got the streaming.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah,
it was
yeah.
on the streaming. So
Yeah.
God, Lost was on it. Lost was
I
on
got-
it too.
Yeah, I got back into Scrubs that way too. Another
Yeah.
show on my short list, but you're right.
Nice.
Psych was a great show. What were the years on Psych again?
Gosh, I'd have to look it up. I think
Oh,
it was
okay.
like
I thought you said it.
04 to 12 or something like that.
Okay.
And now they've had
Um,
like what 3 or 4 movies since
guess,
they've been
yeah.
off.
What
I
platform's that
only
on?
watched the
It
first
was-
one, but
It was
Okay.
it was 06 to 14. That's wild.
6 to 14. Okay.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good show. Good
yeah,
show.
definitely like season 3, 4, 5 were really good when they had like the yin and yang killer at the end of every season.
Yeah.
Like that was a cool storyline. Just somebody that could actually beat Sean, you know, like challenge him anyways, and
Challenge. Don't
actually
beat him.
killed people. And those were cool storylines. So
Yeah, they added some stakes to it. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, Sean and Gus, one of the best buddies on TV. As just
Yeah.
2 guys that just got each other and talk about pop culture. I mean, Sean's he's me. I mean, that pop culture he throws out all the time, constantly. You know,
Mhm.
You,
That was a
you
great
would
show.
be a good Sean. You'd be a good Sean.
yeah,
Hours of observation.
yeah. He's on some show now. My wife's watching, and he just holds a place in my heart. I'm like, oh, Sean,
Mhm.
You.
Yeah.
you guy.
You.
I didn't realize this till I just talked about True Detective, but my other shit, my number 4 is also an HBO show. Much a different genre. It's Eastbound and Down, 2009, 2013.
So good.
I am quite the sucker for Danny McBride basically playing himself as a overage baseball pitcher. I mean, just if you've watched the show, if you watch, especially the first season, and then season 2
First
is a little
season's so
somber.
good.
First season's amazing.
It's so
Second season's
quotable.
got a little somber note, but then 3rd and 4th are just really fun again. And he just continually makes bad decisions too. I mean, there's part
just
of
a
that, but
train
he's
wreck show.
kind of learning, just really fantastic. I love it. I still quote different lines about it too. Like there's this probably my all-time favorite line, and then I'll move on. It's like, I think it's season 1 when he gets back on steroids, try to resurge his career. And he's always doing his Audible tape and he's recording, and he's like, I once had a strength and conditioning coach one time in college try to get me on a weight training program. I told him, like, I ain't gonna lift that shit. It's heavy. Why do I need to lift weights to throw a 100-mile-an-hour fastball? When my hand's been blessed by God.
Seems like a good point.
It's heavy.
Yeah, that first season's so good.
Yeah.
I dropped off. Second season lost me a little bit, and then I watched season 3 and 4, but I don't know. Once the kid got in the mix and things, it lost me a little bit. But
I'm a big fan. Good show.
yeah, if you ever said like, what's number 1 season of a comedy, that's got to be right up there. That's a killer season.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Yeah, he's got his line back to the principal who's like into triathletes, or he's a triathlete.
Mhm.
And he's like, I've been doing a lot of running, cycling, swimming. He's like, well, I play a real sport as opposed to like just being really good at
Baseball.
exercising.
Not being good at exercising. Yeah.
His arrogance is just at a whole nother level, and makes it
Especially because
awesome.
he's such garbage.
he's not a good dude.
I had the mother effing spoon man at a party. I don't know.
Yeah,
That one
Soundgarden
kills me.
videos.
There's just so many dumb things like that.
Yep.
I loved it. Yeah, that's a great choice. Yeah, it just the reasons the rest of the seasons were not subpar, but just didn't get high enough on my list to go into my top
Yeah.
5. So
That's fair. Yeah.
my number 3, 2016 to present time.
Ooh.
We have
Ooh,
talked
present?
about it already,
Present?
so
Yeah.
it's Stranger
Oh.
Things. Stranger Things, yeah. We're definitely that nostalgia age group, and this show hits it on all cylinders every season. The acting, usually I don't like child actors, but these guys, whatever it's the directing, the situations they put them
They're
in,
like 30.
they do a great job.
Very
Even in
mature.
season one, they just put them in acting situations that they could succeed at, and the story's
believable.
great. The adult actors interacting with the kids is really good. I mean, I like every part of it. We've talked a ton about it already on this episode, so I don't need to go into any more. But that's my number 3, Stranger Things.
Obviously, very solid choice. Jeremy,
I'm
your
claiming
choice?
recency bias, but
There might be. You're correct.
My number 3 is The Big Bang Theory.
Not quite two and a
from
half, man.
From 7 to 19. Man, dude, I'll tell you, it is right. It said sitcom, right? You're gonna basically get the same episode over and over, right? Like Sheldon's looking for his Nobel Peace Prize, and Leonard's trying to get after Penny, right? But
It works.
man, I like, in terms of like sitcoms, anyways, like pretty witty humor a lot of times, like pretty smart humor in a lot of cases, I think. And I don't know, something that you could throw on, like you said, at any point in time. You can grab any episode and you're gonna laugh during it. So that was my number 3, Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of episodes in syndication. And I would say you take that show and dump it into the 90s, and it'd probably be pretty high on my list. Just
It'd be bigger than Friends.
Based on what it was competing against. But now that that model just seems dated to me now.
It is.
So it's a little harder for me to sit through. But
yeah. I can't speak. I watched it very sparingly and just never connected with me. And I'm a Johnny Galecki fan.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, that's not actually true.
That's not true.
No.
I was a big Roseanne guy.
Yeah, I did. It's another demo there. It
was like watching
80s.
My family on TV, Jeremy.
There was a lot. There's a lot of similarities there. I think my dad was Dan Connor. It was like a farmer version of Dan Connor.
Yeah. Mine was like a biker version, which Dan Connor was a biker, I guess. So he was just Dan Connor.
So
a little shorter.
But this ain't an 80s and 90s sitcom show.
It's a 2000.
It's a 2000. So my number 3 is from 2009, 2015. It was Parks and Recreation, which was dropped just a little bit ago.
The Office.
Just a really fantastic, so not a new concept, right? It's not living off of something that's new, radical idea for humor, but they did it so damn well. And I was skeptical at first. I remember when it launched, I'm like, okay, I think Greg Daniels is the US Office guy, and he did both shows.
I believe so.
And you're like, okay, well, then he's not really, you're not going to fault a guy for like doing the same thing twice, but as opposed to somebody else just ripping him off. But you have so many good, characters and actors on there who still have like Ron. I mean, Ron Swanson's a top 5 all-time television character. Andy's, I mean, Tom Haverford.
Tom.
I mean, but Leslie, I've grown to really like Leslie, even though she's kind of like the center of the show.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'd never want to work with her. She reminds me of a lot of people that you end up working with at the time, and you're like, oh my God, overachiever and like constantly carving the way, the trailblazing woman role.
And she fell into the hole in the park, like.
Yeah. But there's so much to like about it. I mean, Chris Pratt is the absolute most likable.
Good. He's good.
I'm a big fan of is it Aubrey Plaza? She plays
April.
What's her April? She plays that character so well, and the way that her and Andy somehow connect because they're extremely different people.
Oh yeah, 100%.
There's fun things to be had in there, and I think they just did it really, really well. As much as it is kind of like a retcon, different relocation for The Office, I thought they did it really, really well. It was well done. So,
and you didn't even mention Rob Lowe.
Oh, you're Rob Lowe. I mean, you're right. You're beating
Yeah,
me to the
Adam
punch. But
Scott.
I'm a big fan of Adam Scott, but I think that's the most boring Adam Scott version you're going to get.
Yeah.
I think he's a really talented guy. I think you look at like maybe it shows his range. Step Brothers versus that, it's like completely different roles.
Yeah, I thought he played a straight man, the straight
You
man
get some
role,
early
you
Ben
know?
Schwartz,
Oh,
Ben
yeah.
before now he's Sonic, but making that cheddar.
He's flush with cash.
Yeah, I mean that character, like, just so obnoxious. Henry Winkler as his dad, the doctor.
Yeah.
Um,
I quote
his sister,
the "Don't be suspicious" line all the time when he's at his own funeral. Don't be suspicious, don't be. They're dancing. Like, isn't that him? Run!
Yeah.
Like, it's so
and then
dumb.
I'm blanking on the gal who plays his sister, but she was like, she's doing some good stuff now. She was like,
she was
awesome
huge in the
that
voice acting.
Yeah. She does like Pets, right? Zero Life Pets and other stuff.
Yeah, she was the rabbit in Zootopia, I believe. No, she was the lamb in Zootopia.
Okay.
I can't think of her name offhand, but she does a ton of stuff.
She does stuff, and she's
really
really
Big Mouth, the cartoon Big Mouth.
Yeah,
Big Mouth.
Yeah.
Although she dropped that role because she played the black girl and she wasn't black, so she decided to ditch that role. But
yeah.
So
that was my number 3, Parks and Rec.
Yeah, that was definitely like a 5A, 5B for me. I probably put The Office just a little bit higher, just being a little more original at the time. But I would say Parks and Rec, there's probably very few shows other than maybe my number 2 where I felt like the people making it were having a blast. Like, you got that positive energy when you watch Parks and Rec. Like, those people just loved being there and making the show. There was always that like little undertone of, we're just messing around and you're catching on camera, like that tiny little hint of a smile on every scene from everybody.
Exactly. If you want to laugh really, really hard, just watch their gag reels that are like on YouTube for Parks and Rec or The Office, and you can see that play out. Like, everybody's just, they're busting each other up the whole time and having a great fun with it.
Yeah, everybody's half a second away from breaking character and just laughing. So cool show, love it. It's definitely one of my top shows. My number 2, from 2001 to 2010, although I don't know if I'd count the last season, would be Scrubs. Nick mentioned it earlier. So I love buddy shows, and this is probably JD and Turk, probably the best buddy combo any show. So but it was funny, goofy, so over the top. It was something that was like just hit a chord with me because it was so goofy. But in the same episode, you could have moments where you're crying. They could talk about eating disorders, addiction, suicide, the mortality of having cancer, and like all these things, and the stress of being a doctor, stress of being a nurse. And it, as goofy as it was, it's very, realistic too. A lot of people will say that's the cool thing about Scrubs is they had such a good medical review board with their writing that it's actually pretty accurate. A lot of the stuff that goes on, even though once you take away the goofy parts of it, like the medical part of it's actually semi-accurate. It's not a show where the doctors are doing surgeries and they're running tests and like every doctor stay in their lane. JD was a surgeon, that's all I did was surgery. Or Turk was a surgeon, all he did was surgery. JD was general. So it was very accurate that way. Unlike a show like House where like you do every single thing in the hospital and every doctor is a Superman.
If you're smart enough.
The last season tarnishes it a little when they do the med school thing, but I consider that a separate show because they changed the name, so I didn't let it tarnish me.
I definitely had it in my honorable mentions, but I couldn't make a top 5 as much as I enjoyed it as well. I enjoyed a ton of great music too. I think that's an underrated aspect. That show used great music, but I didn't finish it. I never finished it. So like you referencing season 10, I gotta jump back into that at some point.
The last episode of season 8, when they thought that was going to be the finale.
What is it on?
It was on NBC, and then its last 2 seasons were on ABC. And I don't know. I think you can stream it on Hulu, maybe.
No, it's on something else.
I've never watched it.
I think it might be on Netflix or some. It's on something we don't have Hulu, so
Yeah,
but I've seen it
Yeah.
there.
But at the end, when he's leaving the hospital after saying goodbye to everybody, and they're like playing the film of him and Elliot growing old together, and they got Peter Gabriel's Book of Love in the background as he's watching that, yeah, it just hits me in the feels because he build up to this moment. And and that's kind of the cool part about JD too, is like he's this super loving doctor. He just puts everything into his patients, but he puts so much into his patients. He has like his free time, his social life. He's not a great friend. He's not a great, like a super boyfriend. Like he sabotages a lot of his relationships, and it's kind of real, like, because he
That
puts
is
so
real.
much, into his work, and he puts his heart and soul into it. Like he doesn't give his friends and family the time they deserve. And you see that with his dad ends up passing away, and he doesn't have a good relationship with him, and his brother is a mess up, and he doesn't have a good relationship with him. And with Elliot, is on and off again love interest. He just doesn't have enough time for her. She doesn't have enough time for him. It's very real. I just,
Yeah.
it's an emotional show that'll make you laugh and cry in the same episode multiple times a season. So that's my number 2,
Yeah.
Scrubs.
Yeah. It's a good one.
So when I haven't watched, I need to watch it. That's what I was asking.
Hit one season of True Detective up first, and then 8 seasons of Scrubs,
flip-flop
and then
over.
2 more seasons of True Detective. That's a sandwich you're going to want to try.
Okay. So my number 2, like, this is a case of recency bias too. I know you guys are gonna be like, "Oh, this guy sucks." But
That was a show that's still on.
I just I just recently rewatched the whole series of this. This was another one that I watched in PT school. It was White Collar. I don't know if you guys are familiar.
Heard of it. Yeah.
It's
Matt Bomber, is that the main guy?
It is. Neil Caffrey is a like a world-renowned art thief, and then he gets caught, and so then he's working with Peter Burke, who's an FBI agent. So it's like this kind of back and forth where like this guy's like working for the FBI, but he's always kind of doing his own thing. But then he likes the FBI guy. They're friends, so he's trying to like kind of maintain that relationship and do good things for him and make sure he's not in the lurch, that sort of thing too. So again, it's not like
Tiffany Amber Thiessen's in that show. Is that right?
She is, yeah. Yep.
Always holds a spot in my heart.
90210.
Peter Burke's wife in that. But I don't know, just like an enjoyable, and like again, it's not something that's gonna make you think a ton. It's like a lot of very similar plot lines where you're like, oh, this is impossible to steal. How's he gonna find a way to steal it and not let the FBI know he did it? But no, it was an enjoyable show for me. And again, given the case of recency bias, because I just rewatched the whole five
seasons.
So
yeah, that's the only thing that started to drag near the end with that sameness. I felt like I wish there was a better like underlying connecting story. There was one, but it didn't hit very hard for me.
It was supposed to be like his girlfriend was out there, and there was maybe like some danger, and then that was away, and you have this kind of shadowy undertone. But yeah, that kind of went away. You're right.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I wish there was just a little bit more of that. But
I'm
glad you
know what I was talking about.
I
like that show. So.
Yep.
Cool.
Going
well,
number 2.
My number 2 is not radically different from my number 3. It is The Office, the US version.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's that whole argument: like, are they so similar? Do I gotta only pick one? Like we talked about that before, but I'm like, no, I loved it. I honest to God loved it so much. I think between the original run and then it was on Netflix forever. I think I've seen every episode at least twice, sometimes more. Still holds up. You said, Casey went on deeper dive with it at number 5. I mean, Steve Carell's amazing. I think that, but it's an ensemble show too, that you get to know and love the characters. That makes it so much better. However, you get to talk with so many people who just can jump in and they're like, oh yeah, I caught an episode of that, loved it, thought it was so funny. Like, they kind of get the concept, they get that it's fake documentary, but it still works.
Who's your favorite character?
It might be Michael. I mean,
Really?
the thing that I started learning to enjoy about Michael is they gave you these glimpses like every 2, 3, 4 episodes, somewhere around that cadence, like his abilities to connect with people.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't do that, it would pull you out of it. And there were times where you're like, oh my God, like who would ever allow this guy to be, remaining in a leadership role this long, whether you're a paper company or not. But then he'd jump in and have an episode where he shows like some amazing heart, or he shows some great aptitude, right? And
Yeah,
you're
they
like,
have some
okay.
episodes where he has to go out and sell.
Yeah.
And he's just a killer salesman.
Yeah.
It's just like any
Yeah.
business. Like, well, you're not maybe a manager, but you're a best salesman, so I guess you're gonna get promoted. Maybe you shouldn't have just promoted the next guy in line. But
but
love those
the whole
scenes.
the dynamic between Jim and Dwight for all those years, that it really held up. There's some amazing scene is when Michael's trying to coach Dwight up on sales, and they do the mock phone call with paper ordering, and Jim's playing Mr. Buttlicker, and he wants to
Our sales
wants to buy 1 million reams, and the way everybody's just all in on that scene, especially big hats out to like Rainn Wilson and Steve Carell, because they're the ones playing they're not in a joke. I think John Krasinski did a fine job. He was always the viewer in on the joke, right? That was kind of his role.
Well, our prices have never been lower.
And the way Michael's like looks over at Dwight, like he's gonna buy 1 million reams. And I mean, those are just such great moments. And again, I said the outtakes, if you catch the outtake, the gag reels.
Oh yeah.
It's just, it'll have you laughing the whole time. I mean, guys like Creed would just drop something so random. And again, over time, you got to just appreciate how weird this random character was.
Yeah.
So
have either of you guys gone and watched like the British version at all?
Yeah.
I tried.
Have you?
Like it. I didn't like it at all.
Really?
It has the darker heart. I don't think it has the same.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's like
I still
take
haven't
Michael
done it.
Scott from the first 6 episodes of The Office and just roll that through
Yes.
3 seasons. And it's like
He doesn't have that redeeming quality.
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
maybe my thing with Ricky Gervais, why I didn't make my top stand-ups either. Because I don't know, at the end of it, I mean, he could be funny, but I don't know if I like him. He's not a guy you'd want to go hang out and have some beers with.
You wouldn't want him to present you with a Dundee.
No. But I would take one from Steve Carell.
Yeah, right.
Totally agree.
All right, that's my number 2, The Office. 05
choice.
to 2013, I believe.
Yeah,
Correct.
I think you're right.
My number 1, 2008 to 2013. It's probably low hanging fruit, but it is Breaking Bad. 62 episodes, the tightest show I've ever seen. 62 episodes, and every one of them is intense from start to finish. There's lots of unlikable characters. I think that pulls some people away. They may not like, his wife, or Hank can be tough on people, but I think that brings it all into the reality of the show. Is it's not all likable characters. This is things nasty.
It's real life.
Yeah, it's
Gritty.
an
That's what happens when you're making
unbelievable
meth.
anti-hero development. The Walter White character is just phenomenal. I mean, that transformation from season 1 to season 5 is just incredible. And Jesse's transformation from going through all that stuff, pretty much PTSD by the end of it all. I mean, it's just amazing to watch these characters grow, and the storyline's phenomenal. So that's, I could, if I had the time, I could watch 62 episodes in a row. I mean, it's just a great show. So, and yeah, everybody, a lot of people would agree with me. I mean, 16 Emmys is unbelievable.
Yeah. Pretty well received show. Yeah.
That's okay.
And it was tight. It was definitely, was one of those first of those, it's going to be 5 seasons and it's done. There was no, it knew what it was going to do. It told the story from start to finish. Same reason The Wire was really popular for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Is the show knew what it was going to be.
Didn't watch that either.
And it didn't try to pad it, and it didn't try to extend it. It didn't realize, hey, these characters are really popular. People love this. Let's try to expand it and make it last forever. So
But they do have that offshoot, like Better Call Saul, right? That's like
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's
pretty
good.
cool.
right?
Yeah. And that's actually a really good show too.
heard that.
Surprisingly, I thought it wouldn't be, but it is actually phenomenal too.
Cool.
On my short list. So that's my number one, Breaking Bad.
Nice.
Cool.
Stole it from every list I looked at.
Googled them all. I can't say any more about my number one that you guys haven't already, but mine is The Office. That was one, like when it first came out, like we watched it from season one in college at the time. We would get together each week and watch it. Like that's one show I can say we did that for a number of years where it was like, hey, it's Thursday night, let's watch The Office. And since then, I will not take the time to do that. I'm like, I'll wait till there's 7 episodes I can stream or 4 seasons that I can stream. But yeah, such a good show. I was a big Jim guy in The Office. I don't know. He had likable dude.
Yeah.
But just gosh, yeah, so many skits that you could go over and over about. But yeah, I won't take a ton of time. But number one, The Office.
Oh, and big shout out to John Krasinski because he's still doing big things, like taking his career. He's very different, you know.
Yeah, Spy Guy. Amazon. He's
he was the
Oh, it wasn't Jack Reacher, but it was the other one.
It is isn't it Jack? No, it's not
Jack
Reacher.
Not Jack Reacher.
It's God.
It's the remake Queer Present Danger, Hunt for Red October. The old Tom Clancy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't think of the guy's name though. Anyways, but I think that show's been canceled now though. I think that got the X.
Jack Ryan.
Jack Ryan.
Yeah. Close. It was a Jack.
Spy Guy.
Jack Reacher.
Jack R was close.
The new Jack Reacher. Reacher is a good show.
That would have made my top 5 had there been more of it, right? If they if they can keep it up.
That's to watch.
Spot on. Watch it. It's worth it.
No, you hit, The Office, like I said, Michael, obviously everybody can relate to Jim, right? He's the most relatable character and awesome. But like I said, I think if you took,
I'm striving to be Michael.
It'd be hard to find anybody now in hindsight to replace Steve Carell as Michael. And I mean, obviously they dabbled with all those guests, for a while. And they took it in that really weird, it did hold up even a little bit with, who am I thinking of that came in as the creepy boss? Robert California.
James
Spader. Spader.
Yeah, Fader.
Yep. Ultron. Yeah. I mean, he's that added like a weirdness to it, but it still worked because they could play off of him, but he was super creepy and just not very likable. Awesome choice, Jeremy. Awesome. My number one, we've already beat to death here, but I did go with Stranger Things.
Ooh.
In my heart of hearts,
because recency bias.
Maybe, but it's also a show I've seen the first 3 seasons twice. Gone back, rewatched them with the kids. Second time through with the kids. They all like it.
Was it freaky for them?
Yeah, to certain degrees, yeah. And we haven't seen them already. Having seen the episodes already, you can kind of steer them away at different times if you're worried about certain gore scenes and stuff like that.
You said, shut up, quit crying.
No.
You had the scotch tape out.
Yeah.
You're watching this.
Doing the bird box meme. No. I think the writing's tight. We talked about the child actors being pretty darn high quality. Pulls you in. The story's very engrossing. I like, how you mentioned with Breaking Bad, these guys also have had a vision, 4 to 5 seasons, and then they're going to be done. And I feel like the vibe of the music, as I mentioned with, Scrubs, the score to Stranger Things gets so underrated too. Like the synthesizer riffs that they use. It helps take you back to that vibe that they're searching for. I think they nail it on so many different levels. So it hits for me. They got a broad, ever-growing array of characters that you seem to care about, and that maintains some interest season to season. So I could go on and on again, but we did for quite a while early on in the show. So excited to see where they take it.
Yeah.
This last season and a half.
Great
That's my
list.
number
Can't argue. Can't argue.
Same to you, fellas.
And that is episode 24 of PT Shop Talk. Thanks everybody for listening. If you got questions, comments, concerns, lists you want to hear us talk about, topics you want us to cover, shoot us an email at ptshoptalk@gmail.com. Don't forget to watch us on YouTube at PT Shop Talk if you want to see our ugly mugs. Until next time, I'm Casey Hansen, and with me as always is
Jeremy Van
Big doing.
guys will get it someday.
We'll
get
figure it
someday.
out sometime.